Hey, good morning, everybody. Scott Luton and Mary Kate Soliva with you here on Veteran Voices. Welcome to today's show. Mary Kate, how you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good, Scott. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful. We got you back. We got an all-star guest that we're going to be talking to here today. So we're really excited.
I'm super excited, especially because JB is also one of my mentors. So we got one of my mentors and good friends on the call today.
Awesome. So folks, excited and then super excited, which is an exponential in terms of excitement here today. So we love to have Mary Kate back with us and have our great guest, which we're going to introduce in just a second. But we've got a wonderful conversation teed up with a veteran, a business leader, a big time philanthropist, and servant leader. So stay tuned for what promises to be a great discussion. Now, Mary Kate, before we get started, quick programming note. Veteran Voices is part of our Supply Chain Now family of programming, I should say. Today's show is conducted in partnership with our dear friends at Vets to Industry. Talk about a home run nonprofit doing powerful work for the veterans community across the country. And Mary Kate, Vets to the numeral 2industry.org is where you can hook up with Brian and the rest of the V2I fam, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we probably wouldn't have this conversation if it wasn't for Brian at Vets Industry or with our esteemed guest. I literally think it just blazed the trail for this conversation today.
I agree with you, Mary Kate. So on that note, we want to introduce our special guest here today. Our guest serves as the assistant manager for security with the Los Angeles Angels. He's also a veteran and retiree of the United States Army, and he's a volunteer leader with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, which we're going to find a lot more about. Please join me in welcoming JB Jaso. JB, how you doing?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be on the show today and see Mary Kate again.
No kidding. You know, JB, you might agree with me here. I swear, if the city of Atlanta could just find a way to connect the utility grid to Mary Kate Soliva, that would be plenty of green energy for years to come, right?
Definitely.
That's why they're going to pay you all the big bucks, Scott. They're going to write you a check out soon.
Something like that, right? Hey, we got to get creative in our solutions, but I love the vibe you bring. And of course, JB, I want to say we met at an earlier event, probably at Vets to Industry, and I'm really looking forward to sharing your story here today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to being on and talking about it.
All right. So on that note, before we get to some of the heavy lifting, JB, we want to better understand, where you grew up and some of those stories of your upbringing. And let's make sure, we'll tackle this in a second, but we hear that you're a sneakerhead. So we got to talk sneakers with you and talk some sports. But before we get there, tell us about where you grew up.
Yeah. So I grew up in Long Beach, California. So LA County area kid, just growing up like a normal Southern California kid, right. Along the beach and enjoying the nice weather. Like today, it's still in the high 80s. Can't beat it for November, right? So, but yeah, so grew up there. Actually had a really good experience. I started out in Catholic school, so I learned about being in a private school, and then switched over to public schools. And I actually went to the best high school in all the nation, Long Beach Polytechnic. So
Long Beach Polytechnic.
That's right. What? So known as really popular for we're known as for our sports, of course, and a lot of actors come from our school. So so somebody like Snoop Dogg or Cameron Diaz, or tennis great Billie Jean King, or great military leader like myself, JB Jaso. No, so yeah, so yeah, we have the most NFL players of any high school that have come out of our school. So pretty amazing school. And I've met some of my greatest friends there, and we'll talk about one of my friends, I think maybe a little bit later. But so yeah, so I grew up, did Boy Scouts, played Little League Baseball, made the Eagle Scout and Boy Scouts, and
wow,
just had a blast living down here in Southern California. It's can't beat it.
Let me ask you a question about Eagle Scout. I'm very jealous of that, as that is a tough honor to earn. Of your family, which member of your family was most proud of you accomplishing Eagle Scout?
Oh, that's a hard one, but I would probably definitely say my mom. Yeah. So she was always the one driving me around, and getting me to point A and point B. And, it was a funny story is I never even got my license until I was 18, because I was just so busy with scouts and everything else at school and all the activities I was doing. I was a little like 15-year-old kid that decided to organize a 5K, 10K run in my community, which became the city of Long Beach's largest running event when I was 15.
Wow.
So we
Wow.
started,
Maybe
operating budget back then in the late 90s was like 35,000 for us to run it, and then got up to $80,000 as the years went on. And so a little kid just doing this and trying to make a difference in the community. So and I had a blast doing it.
So, okay. One more question. What, and then we're going to talk about your sneakerhead and maybe your sports.
Don't forget that, Scott.
I can't. I'm dying to know
Important
these
things.
But I want to ask, clearly you've got a long lifetime record of giving back and volunteerism and making a difference. Who or what instilled that in you as a young man that started you on that path?
Yeah, I'll definitely say my dad was a really big influence on that. And I think he was just always involved with the community and always wanted to make it a better place. And then even going back to my grandfather too, like he was really big. I mean, he moved here from Mexico when he was young, and really really generated a lot of interest in helping other Mexican American families and his own family, and really setting a presence here in Southern California. And so I think between them two, and along with which was my city council member back in Long Beach when I was growing up, Jeff Kellogg, who's actually the brother to former 82nd Airborne Division General Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. So I think Jeff Kellogg was very instrumental in my development and getting involved with the community and what I could do to help the city out. So three influential people that I really had helping me out as a kid.
No shortage of mentors. That's awesome to hear, and I really admire your action focused give back and service approach. We certainly need more action focused leaders all throughout history, but especially during these challenging times. Okay, so let's move on to something a little bit lighter before we get into your military service. So Mary Kate, you were giving me the goods in the pre-show about JB on a lighter note. So give me a couple things that we want to ask JB about before his military service.
Oh, I've got to ask JB, one of the things, like when we met each other down at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, you never wore the same pair of shoes. So I got to ask, from someone who only owns like a few pairs of shoes, how many shoes do you have in your collection? And tell us about your favorite pair, if you can even narrow it down to one.
Oh yeah, I think favorite pair is pretty difficult, but yeah, so I just, as a kid, I've always liked sneakers and shoes, and so I just grew a passion for it. And as I got my own paychecks, I was able to buy my own pairs, and the collection just kept growing and growing. So made it up to, I think I'm about 467 right now, I think. So it's quite a bit of pairs.
Did you see Scott's face when you said that?
I was expecting a couple dozen, JB.
Yeah.
467. You need a warehouse and inventory manager to keep those things straight.
Yeah.
There's only 365 days in the year, JB. But I have to tell you, Scott, JB said the only pair that he wears the same are his boots. Those are the only ones that he didn't have a different set for. But
love it. All right, quick follow-up question: are New Balance sneakers still cool?
Depends on the brand, or it depends on the model, I should say, not the brand. Yeah, people still wear New Balances. Yeah. If
I was still flexible, I'd show you this pair of shoes I've got on my feet right now. But I'll pose that to you after today's interview. All right, one last question, and then Mary Kate's going to take us through your military service. You're a big sports buff.
Yes.
You mentioned you're an Arizona University of Arizona alum. So beyond the Wildcats, right?
Yep.
Arizona.
So
beyond those athletics, what else are some of your favorite teams to follow?
Oh yeah, so definitely I'm a huge Baltimore Ravens fan. So after the LA Raiders left LA when I was a kid, I was heartbroken, so never lived in a city until I moved to Baltimore. I was stationed in Baltimore and became a Ravens fan. You can't not be a Ravens fan if you live in Baltimore, right?
Right.
Purple everywhere. And then I grew up a Dodgers fan, and so always a true Dodger blue fan. And then now I work for the Angels, so of course I'm an Angel fan, and so we're doing some good off-season trades right now. So I think we're pretty excited to see some greater capacity as we move into the new year and some more wins. Yeah.
Wait, let's get one of the best players in baseball back, Mike Trout. Looking forward to him getting back healthy and doing what he does, which is continue to build out a Hall of Fame career. So love the Angels and best luck to the franchise. The Dodgers, I'm gonna keep on going to the Ravens. I gotta skip over those Dodgers. But the Ravens, man, how electric the quarterback that came out of Louisville. I can't remember his name right this second.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson. Yeah.
Yes. He's like watching, as a Falcons fan, which our heart's been broken time and time again. Michael Vick was so electric when he came to Atlanta, played for Atlanta those early years, one of the fastest players in the league. He could also, lead a passing offense as he proved out during his run here. And I'm kind of, JB, I wouldn't say I'm a bandwagon Ravens fan, but I find myself pulling for the Ravens and Jackson, and we'll see if he can bring home a Super Bowl championship, right?
Yeah, we definitely need that. Yeah, it's been a few years. I think 2013 was the last time we won. So yeah, we can use a couple more.
That is right. I was thinking if the Ravens had won one since the franchise was moved to Baltimore from Cleveland, right? Yeah. And they have one. So you've already so come on, let's share the wealth. Send a Super Bowl championship to Atlanta, would you please? But hey, all right, I digress.
Well, Scott, I know who I'm bringing to trivia night for the sports trivia. So
that's right.
Do it.
Maybe he's going to win me all the big bucks in the Jeopardy categories.
That is right, man. And any shoe trivia or sneaker trivia, of course, we've got our player there. Okay, so Mary Kate, as much fun as we're having kind of in who JB Jaso is the person, we're going to dive into his military journey now, right?
Yes, absolutely. And JB, one of the big things, I mean, not that I'm biased or anything, that we're both Army, but I was like, with Scott's like, who should we have? I was like, I got to bring another Army brother on the show. So if you could talk to me, JB, about your, you picking the Army branch out, all the other branches, and then sort of where you've been in your Army career. And I know I definitely want to, Scott and all our listeners today, to hear about the book that you created, particularly a one location that you ended up in your career. So you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I decided to enlist in the Army because the Air Force recruiter didn't answer the phone. So
typical, right?
Yeah.
Typical.
So I don't know what the Air Force recruiter
he or she was out golfing, I'm sure, right?
They were enjoying the Southern California beaches, I guess, but I don't know what they were doing. But I definitely knew I didn't want to be a Marine or a sailor. And then we didn't have Space Force back then, so it was definitely Army. It was, and so I originally wanted to go be an MP, actually a military police officer. And my dad's like, absolutely not, because he's a veteran too. He retired from the Army. So absolutely not. And then I was like, well, one of my options is CBRN or chemical. So he's like, do that, because you're just going to be in a cage issuing masks, and you're going to be by yourself. You promote fast. And so I was like, okay, sounds good. So that's what I ended up doing. I became a chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. Big old handful or mouthful of letters, but yeah, became a CBRN specialist, and didn't expect my career to go where it went. And I was very surprised, very lucky to have had such a great career. 23 years in the military, or in the Army. So started off at Fort Lewis, or now Joint Base Lewis McChord. Did a tour over in Korea, South Korea, and then that's where I was at for 9/11. And then when 9/11 happened, because I was going to get out after that, and then when 9/11 happened, I decided I needed to stay in and continue to serve the country, which took me to Hawaii for several years, 8 years, and then back out to Maryland, and then I assessed for the Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC. So I went through the assessment process for that, got selected. I was super excited for that, and then spent about 8 years there at JSOC at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which was absolutely phenomenal being in that type of unit. And so collectively, when you look at 23 years of service, like there's a lot of
It's
things that,
incredible.
yeah, it's a long time, and I learned so much in that process that I think there's not a point in that career where I ever regret doing something different, or I just treasured it all. I absolutely loved it.
What was your favorite? You mentioned a couple different stations and locations and commands and whatnot. What, from a geographic standpoint, from like a local vibe or the local community standpoint, what was your favorite duty station?
Oh, well, everybody knows it's going to be Hawaii. Everybody
Fort
that knows
Bragg,
me,
North Carolina, I know is your all-time favorite. You got to meet me there.
that's right.
That's
Yeah.
great to meet. Hawaii is beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely love the 8 years in Hawaii. I was in 2 infantry units. I was super scared to be in when I got selected to go to an infantry unit. I was like, oh man, I don't want to go there. Like infantrymen are rough. I was always in support units, and then I absolutely fell in love with the infantry units. And so I was in the 2nd Battalion, 5th Infantry Regiment Bobcats, and then which I deployed to Afghanistan with. That was my first deployment. And then my 2nd infantry unit was the 1st Battalion, 27th Infantry Regiment, the Wolfhounds, which I have a lot of passion for and a brotherhood with. We went to Iraq, and then that's where I created and developed the book, The Wolfhound Reflections, A New Generation, which really captures, it's a photo book that also tells stories, but it captures what it's like to be an infantryman through our eyes in Iraq, in Baghdad, Iraq. So I think it came out pretty successful. I was really happy with how the book came out and showed us what it was like, to be on the ground, so.
Well, JB, there's no question that you made a huge impact. I mean, I attended your retirement, and you even had the flower lays there. So even having that little bit of the Ohana and the island culture there, but having your family, I realized that you touched that joint connection with not just the Army, but you had Air Force brothers there, you had Navy brothers, sisters there. It's like this whole like joint. JB, you were like the middle of the joint service that you just connected everybody. So I definitely feel like that was something I got it from you, is just really including everybody.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that book was absolutely incredible, just like your experience in the family. But I know Scott's dying to ask more about it here.
Well, 2 things, and you're right, Mary Kate. Let's make sure we get a link to how folks can get the book, and let's put that in the show notes. So I'd love to look at it, get a copy myself. And then secondly, to Mary Kate's last question, JB, I mean, I think she put that really well based on the little bit of time I've been able to kind of better understand your outlook on life and your MO. Do you see yourself, and was it intentional and deliberate to be that connector that help make things happen in the military, which we really need? As we all know, me being in the Air Force, y'all being in the Army, there can be loners, there can be all types of people, right? And we really need those connectors to bring folks together and sue through those tough days to keep the mission going forward. Was that something deliberate you applied to your leadership style?
No, I think it was just natural. I think, so my parents were really, I think when you look at foundational values and the way that you're raised, I think my parents really gave me an opportunity and really showed me how to like open up and connect to people and bring people together and make people happy. And I think that's where it really, developed. And it was always like that for me growing up as a kid, and, through my military experience, and even now here with the Angels, like trying to connect and bring people together. And collectively, like I just believe that it's you have that family atmosphere, no matter where you're at, you're going to be more successful.
I love that. Mary Kate, we need to convince JB to run for politics. Whatever office, you got 2 backers right here. We need more folks that view the world like that, right? Rather than divide and kind of inflame things. I love your view there. So, all right. So Mary
Absolutely,
Kate.
Scott. Yeah, that's the one thing I really was drawn. I know we can talk back and forth as if JB's not here, but JB, it's just, the way that you're able to bring people together, and you did it even in your transition, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I'd love to hear, to caveat like Scott's question earlier about who was pivotal in your upbringing, but now in your military career, who were those few folks that really stand out that helped launch a successful military career for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was, so I'm 42 years old, so getting out of the military at 42, like somebody's always told me what my values were going to be, right? So my parents set the foundational values for me in life, and then when I joined the Boy Scouts of America told me what my values were going to be. So you know, the
Right.
Scout Oath and all that good stuff. And then the Army said my values too. So I never really went back to think about it until I was retiring of who were the most influential for me. And as I was able for the first time in my life develop my own values of what I wanted to do. So as I really went back to go look at my values, I think one of the things for me was learning about authenticity. And I think being authentic was like a key value of mine. And so I go back to my very first unit, you know, the 513th Transportation Company at Fort Lewis, Washington. And it was a collective group of people. So my company commanders, I had two, my first sergeant, my two platoon sergeants, and they really taught me to be me. And I think the Army gives you your left and right limits, but you need to still have be authentic to yourself, right? So so I think for them that was a collective group of people that were really influential. And then I think when I went to Hawaii, my Wolfhound family from the 1st Battalion, 27th Infantry Regiment, collectively that group of people were very influential, and they really helped develop. So those two units and those people, my leaders within those two units, really helped me develop who I am throughout my military career, but then also have set the foundation for me as I've moved on outside of the military.
I think that's great, great, JB. And just even from attending your retirement, you had numerous officers that were talking about the things that you taught them. So I thought that was really incredible, because you as a senior enlisted leader usually tend, you know, in our dynamic in the military, it's usually top down. But for you at that level to hear these senior officers talking about the impact that you had in their career, I thought was incredible. So that's amazing. And I'd love to hand over Scott here to ask you a little bit more, because I definitely want to pull in, and you have so many nuggets of information on the transition too. Love to hear it.
Yes, I agree with you. And Mary Kate, we're going to have to get some of the stories that I bet some of JB's service friends and mates had to share on JB. We get the goods. We'll bring you back for a look behind episode, JB. But just kidding.
I think all the gag gifts were under the table that day. I don't think they were.
Well, gosh, 23 years. What a remark. I mean, beyond everything else you've shared, you've been a part of, and we're going to touch on some things you're doing now. But man, 23 years of dedicating and serving the country. And I'm just honored to spend some time with you here today. Okay. So JB, I want to talk about your transition. And we spend a lot of time talking about the transition here on Veteran Voices. It's one of the common themes. And it's that because I think a lot of folks continue to struggle with their transition.
Very true.
I think on the other side, Mary Kate, and we've talked about this, the private sector and corporate America, while they've made some strides, you know, there's still plenty of improvement we can do there as we embrace our veterans that are transitioning, and we find them good jobs, not being underemployed and some of those other challenges that are out there. So JB, question to you, if you tell us about your transition in general first, if you would.
Yeah, so I think so working at the Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC, I was really busy all those years. So traveling the world, making it a better place. Just throwing in this little Michael Jackson song for you and for me and the entire human race. Yeah. So, so traveling and just being super busy all the time and never had time for myself. And then COVID hit, right? So March, around March 17th is when COVID really shut everything down in North Carolina, the Fort Bragg area. So for the first time, I got to like calm down, like sit on the couch, not do anything, sit in, you know, shorts and t-shirt and just watch Tiger King, right? And
gosh, really?
and so then at that point I realized, whoa, I like this break, like, you know, and I'm actually able to take care of myself for once. And so at that point is like, man, I'm already over 20 years. It's time to move forward and retire, hang it up. So during those couple months that we were on COVID, like I took that opportunity to say, yeah, I'm going to retire. This is it for me. You know, I'm going to go through September 2021 and that'll be it. But during those first 5 months of my transition process, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know anything. And all I knew was I had a blank canvas and I could paint it whatever colors I want, do whatever I want with it. But as soon as I said I wanted to retire, I felt very isolated and I felt alone. And there was nobody around me because my unit and everybody else would continue to move forward and, continue their mission. And great military leaders as we are, we're really good in teaching our soldiers or our sailors, Marines, and airmen. We're able to teach them how to shoot, move, and communicate because we've all done that. We've gone through that process. But as military leaders, we haven't gone through a transition out of the military yet. So we don't know that process and we don't understand it. So what we do, and I'm guilty of it too as a military leader, when somebody's told me they're going to get out of the military, I'm like, okay, go take care of yourself. You got it. Well, because I didn't know what to do, So I was in that same situation. So within my first 5 months, I just heard other people saying, oh, go do this, go do that, go do this. So my first 5 months, I spent 132 meetings that I did. I did 189 hours on Zoom, 54 online classes. And at the end of those first 5 months, I still didn't know what I wanted to do.
Wow.
Absolutely wasted. I wouldn't say wasted. I did say wasted, but it's not what I meant. But I spent a lot of time doing things that weren't really helping me develop who I wanted to be outside of the military. I gained a lot of knowledge but it really wasn't going to help me to where I wanted to be. Once I went through a process or a nonprofit organization called the Leader Transition Institute, they have a course called Changing Focus from We to Me. That's when I really discovered my purpose and my why. And when I got that, then it really focused me down to what I really wanted to do. And as I talked about, I absolutely love sports. And so I knew I wanted to get into sports, but I didn't know really how to do that. And then being in the special operations community, I also heard about this other program called the Honor Foundation. And so I signed up, applied for it, and got accepted and went through the program as Mary Kate did as well. And so we went through that same program, and that was when I really learned how to here's my purpose, here's my why, how do I get to it? And they really helped lead me to where I'm at today. So I think that was the big pieces of the pie that a lot of people just don't think about.
Right.
And I think when you look at lessons learned, I think finding your why or finding your purpose is priority, right? Because time is our most precious resource. So I spent 189 hours on Zoom and all these classes. None of that in those first 5 months helped me get to where I'm at today in the Major League Baseball and sports industry. There's other things I should have been doing if I would have known earlier, getting certifications that help me in the sports industry, like the certified stadium sports professional, and other avenues and other classes that would have helped me get and have better opportunities here in sports. So I think getting the certifications that matter, and then absolutely without a doubt owning your transition. Good, Mary Kate. Sorry.
I was saying you mentioned earlier about being a nuclear biological, having weapons of mass destruction on your resume at the top of the list. I don't know, Scott, what do you think? If as a civilian, I may be a little bit intimidating, right, JB? So I think we had that conversation, talk about virtual cups of coffee, but then in-person cups of coffee, talking about how do we get weapons of mass destruction is something that a civilian, someone who's never served, going to understand what kind of skills you bring to the table.
Right. Right. And it's one of the biggest parts of the challenge, right? It's one of that building bridges across those gaps. We've made a little progress, but we got to keep getting a lot better. And so that the language that us as veterans and military members are now having with corporate, private sector, all those hiring managers, they're fluent in the language we're talking, and we're fluent in the language they're talking. And that's how we can hopefully find better opportunities. One question, as you were, I think one of the many things I liked about what you just shared is something that so many folks, myself included, walk right past and overlook. And that is, rather than, in my transition, I was focused on just getting a job so I can pay bills. Man, if I had taken the time to do what you just described and really better understand what I love to do, right? And then once we identify at least something, you're not going to have the perfect answer probably a lot of times because it evolves once you identify the first thing, but then kind of figuring out how to get there, resources, certifications, network members, meetings, whatever. And that, I think that is a golden nugget that folks listening to this conversation, it might sound, if I'm still in the uniform, that might strike me as warm and fuzzy, but that is such a truth of life, determining what you want to do. Mary Kate, how do you respond to what JB just shared?
I think it's spot on. Just JB is more organized than I am in the sense of keeping track of how many virtual cups of coffee. We sort of have like this little competition of like, how many are you up to now? Have you done like 80 cups of coffee? And it was a challenge for me too, to think you can just cold message people on LinkedIn or just say, will you take a time to talk to me? I'm transitioning out. I have no idea what I want to do. But I think that the truth of the matter is people have a semblance of what they don't want to do. So I think keeping track of like, do you want to work weekends? Do you want to work nights? What are you wanting, full-time, part-time? Are you going to balance school? So I think there's things that we know that we don't want to do, but we don't sort of put it at the forefront. And I think that's something what JB was saying is spot on. You can invest all these hours and still not know what you want. So start with your why.
I love that. Okay. So now Mary Kate's taking us into the next aspect of this transition conversation. And by the way, I'll just add to what Mary Kate shared. Start putting it on paper. What you do want to do, what you don't want to do, start building a list. That's going to help you. It's that simple. Okay. So JB, you've already shared some nuggets just as you've shared your transition story. But if you had to really put a fine point on that pencil and let's say you're the keynote of a big grand auditorium, maybe it's Dodger Stadium, maybe it's what park do the Angels play in?
Angel Stadium.
How could I forget that? It's the grand daddy of them all. It is a big, thousands of veterans are transitioning through. You've got a chance and their captive attention. What's a couple things that you'd really be specific about in terms of best transition practices?
Yeah, so I think owning your transition is really key. And I think something I heard the other day to how to really talk about transition was, have you ever used the navigation system Waze?
Yeah,
Waze, right? So it's a social media navigation system, right? We're all going at different speeds and we're all going different, directions and going different ways. But at the end of the day, if we're driving up from, Fort Bragg, North Carolina up to the Baltimore, we're taking the 95. There's a whole group of cars that are doing the same thing. They're all going north, whether they're going to Baltimore or New York or, going to DC, everybody's moving north, right?
Yep.
So everybody they're all in a different situation, all in different cars, all, different makes and models, right? And so as you're moving north, you're utilizing each other, utilizing ways to get there. So
where the police at?
Yeah, where the police are at, where broken down cars at, if there's construction, if the roads, it tells you when you're getting to Fredericksburg, because that's when the traffic stops when you're going north on 95, right? So
exactly. Goodness.
Right. But it's telling you different ways and how to get through there, right? So it's a whole bunch of people trying to move in a direction, all in their own little ways of how to get there, but getting there, right? And that's how transition is. I mean, we're all, military members trying to get out of the military and develop a new life outside. But we need to utilize each other to get there and utilize all the different resources that we have, lean on each other. There's many, many, many times where, I leaned on Mary Kate to help us, help me get through those points. But utilizing each other within your own story, within the things that are happening within your own life to move forward and get out and continue to leverage on each other as you get out, because the day you get out and you transition out, now you're transforming into a new life. Just like in the military, we spent at least the minimum of 8 weeks transforming us from a civilian into a service member, right? So TAP is only 4 days. So that's the transition part. Now we have to transform, into becoming a civilian, I guess you could say,
I love that. It's lifetime advice, really, right? And I think what I've seen, at least Mary Kate would welcome your thoughts, is as we're going through that together, we all hit different resources. It's our radar. A lot of times it's not a good fit for me. Well, hey, you sit down and have a cup of coffee and you're talking about, recent observations. It might be a perfect resource in someone else's blind spot, right? So I love that. I love that Waze analogy, by the way. And
first time I heard that one.
Yeah. May all of you listening not get stopped by the popo. So make sure you're paying attention and those hot spots, because you know that caravan of cars that JB talked about, they're not just moving all together, but they're moving at 90 miles an hour, right? Just at that sweet spot. All right, so Mary Kate, I'm going to make a change for once in my life. It's going to feel real good, going to make a difference, going to make it right. What is that,
Yes.
JB? You know, hey, you started with the whole Michael Jackson songs, Man in the Mirror. I had to get one in there. Mary Kate, if you were back to that analogy, grand keynote, talking to thousands of folks that are transitioning, what's one piece of advice you'd offer up?
Well, I go back to that Waze analogy that JB just said, but your family's on that trip with you. So I think that was something that even I took for granted on the hours of a cup of coffee. There's a literal sense to this that JB and I took him to an actual coffee shop that ended up being his favorite coffee shop down in North Carolina. But one of the things was taking that moment, and I think it was 5 months for me too, 5 months into my transition, that I was like, I've got my family. I got to think about, what's my husband's transition going to be like? Where does he actually want to go? Does he want to stay in the same job? What can I do at these resources of these over 45,000 veteran service organizations that I can do to help him? So just remember who else is in that car with you, and they're on that journey with you as well. So
absolutely, and don't let the reckless ones drive that car, right?
Not me then.
What's funny here, I'm making a little observation, is when I threw 90 miles an hour out there, neither one of y'all blinked. So maybe I'm the slow driver here, and you're like, man,
that's not talking about himself.
All right.
Not you, Scott.
All right. So now that we've established I'm the boring driver, I want to talk about what you do now, JB. So we've kind of walked through your upbringing, some of the big things you did there growing up in California. We've talked about a lot of your service projects, the Eagle Scout, man, and it's been 23 years serving the country and serving your fellow soldiers in the U.S. Army and many others. And then your transition, and now we kind of arrive at what you're doing now, and we're going to tackle this via Major League Baseball. We're also going to talk about one of the big time causes that you're a part of. So let's talk about what you do with the Angels first.
Yeah, so I was pretty lucky utilizing my networking and everything, like I said, in the transition process, to only be out of the military 1 month and then landing a job here at Major League Baseball. So if you keep in mind, there's only 30 Major League Baseball teams in the United States, right? So I landed a position in one of the 30, right? So as the assistant manager of security for the stadium, and I think when you really look at it, security, people don't really pay attention to security at stadiums or any venue. When you go, you're just wanting to see, Shohei Ohtani hit a home run or pitch a perfect game, or Michael Trout, catching that ball as it's going over the fence, right? So that's what you're here to get, drink a whole bunch of beer, eat some hot dogs, and just have a great time, right?
Have you been peering in on my baseball activities, JB?
Scott's like a little kid over here. He's just loving all of this.
Right.
He's like, when do you get us free tickets, Davey?
Love it.
Yeah.
But JB, the point you're making, you're right. Mary Kay. I mean, I don't think nearly. I'm there to see a game, enjoy company, hopefully watch my team win. All the other stuff, to your point, is kind of in the peripheral, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. So I think that was something that really drove my excitement. So right before I got out of the military, I was able to do a 3-month internship with the Houston Astros single A team, the Fayetteville Woodpeckers. And that's when I finally did that internship, or a lot of people will call it a skill bridge program. Mine wasn't part of the skill bridge. I coordinated it by myself, but doing a skill bridge or understanding that internship. And then I really I knew once I started doing the internship, that was my love. And that's what made me, I would wake up in the morning, not feeling like P. Diddy, but feeling like me, going forward.
And a pair of sneakers.
Yeah. Yeah. And then going there and enjoying the game, and being there and watching families, make memories together. And that made me so happy, and getting them in that stadium, getting them out of that stadium safe, and that's what I'm doing here at the Angels, helping them out, being a part of that team to make sure that fans have the greatest experience they can here in Anaheim, and then they can leave safely, and then make sure the players are safe and the staff, and then the venue remains safe. So, that's what I'm doing here, and I'm truly loving it.
I can tell. It's all part of the fan experience, right? FX,
Right.
just like customer experience is a big thing these days, which is really cool to see. All of us as consumers and customers, and in the fan experience, and all in a holistic way of kind of looking at that, which I'm hearing you talk about, JB. Okay, so one more follow-up question before we talk about the initiative and cause you're volunteering with. What is the what is the thing about your role in Major League Baseball? Because only a handful of the world's population have a chance to work for a major league club. What's one thing that surprised you when you came up from Fayetteville Woodpeckers, which is a new minor league team on my radar now, up to the big time with the Angels? What's one thing that might have surprised you?
Well, I think the biggest thing, I think, obviously the crowd base, from 6,000 people at, in Fayetteville to, nearly 46,000 people here. So a huge difference. The stadium just massive. But I think when you look at minor league baseball, there's such a few front office staff, and everybody has multiple roles, to Major League Baseball, where everybody has their unique role and piece of the pie, and how it all just comes together. And so you have, it reminds me a lot of the military. I mean, it does. It reminds me a lot of the military. So they do their, critical thinking and the way and their plans development, just like how we do in the military, military decision-making process. They call them memos, but we call them op orders, and so it's really interesting. It's basically the same stuff, and without a doubt, and which is really fun to be a part of that process, and then come in with a little military mindset, a little bit, coming in and bringing in some, some things that people didn't think about. So
hiring managers that are hearing this conversation, if you just heard what JB talked there, the terms might be different, what we call this and what we call that, but gosh, the Angels get the opportunity to draw on 23 years of experience, where he's, JB's doing a lot of what he did in the military. We bring so much value to the table. So I really appreciate you making that point, JB. Okay. So Mary Kate, when you suggested that we get with JB's agent and get him on the show, get him booked, that was a tough. We had to go through an army of agents, JB.
Yes.
But kidding aside, you really talked about his work with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and how important that was. I just saw you earlier on social dropping some of the latest around that, JB. And Mary Kate, that really clearly that was something that stood out to you when you, I guess, first got to meet and work with JB earlier in y'all's career. Is that right?
Yes, and I'm actually wearing purple too. And it's like JB's wardrobe slowly started changing to purple, but this is even a special month too. It's one of the awareness months, and so. But what I love is like JB advocates for this cause. It's something near and dear to him as a personal friend that he'll talk about. But it's throughout the whole year. We have these awareness months, but for JB, this is like something that I'm just so proud of you. I see you out there all the time at these different social engagements, and it's about helping the transition service member, but you're also empowering us that there's causes that are part of like our moral compass, that are part of our personal journey that we can also share. So it's like, yes, we're in the uniform, but there's something that makes us unique that we can define beyond the uniform. So I'd love to hear more about about your friend, about how you got started in this and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So going back to my childhood, I talked about Long Beach Poly, right?
Right.
So I was running cross country and track at Poly. And when I was the incoming junior, the new incoming freshman class was coming in. And at that point, I met one of the new incoming guys. His name was Tyler Nason. And so Tyler was absolutely phenomenal athlete, and played soccer, ran cross country track, one of our top runners. Played in the band, did everything, and all the girls were always in awe over him too, which was really fun to be around and be a friend of his. But he ended up moving on, going to Cal State or Cal Berkeley, sorry, not Cal State, but UC Berkeley, and did a successful time up there and running cross country and track and having a really good time, and then meeting having a girlfriend, and which became his fiance and later became his wife. But when he moved back down to Southern California, was working in the aerospace industry, he still was very athletic and was out playing soccer one day, and he did a header, hit the ball with his head, and as he came up, he felt a lot of pain in the left side of his, his abs, and so I went and did some scans and found that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So he was 25 years old, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So when you really think about that, he is 25-year-old. I remember what I was doing when I was 25. And if you guys go back and think what you were doing when you were 25, he had to change from living your life at 25 years old to trying to survive, right? 66% of pancreatic cancer patients will die within the first year. So my cousin actually was just diagnosed in July. He survived 11 weeks before just passing away a few weeks ago. So at that point, 66% will die within the first year. And then when Tyler was diagnosed, only 4% would survive 5 years. So that means 96% of the people would die within 5 years. So it was a death sentence. And so I didn't really know about these statistics. I knew that Tyler was young, fit, athletic. And so I was just like, when I found out he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I was like, okay, you're gonna be fine. Do some chemo, radiation, you'll be back at it. But then in 2010, he invited me to go to Washington, D.C. and go do some advocacy on Capitol Hill with Congress. And so at that time, I didn't know anything about pancreas. I didn't even know whether the pancreas is or where it is in our body or what it does. And then he brought me to this organization called PanCAN, the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. Then I started to learn that it was the first organization dedicated to fighting pancreatic cancer in a comprehensive way, and really focusing at research, patient services, advocacy, and the community, bringing it all together. So it is the largest pancreatic cancer organization in the nation, really fighting and helping, increase the survivability. So back in 2010, 5-year survivability was only 4%. At 2020, we made the 10%. So we because of the help with the community and research and developing a strategic plan, we've really gotten forward to where we're at. So we have set new goals. By 2030, we want to make it to 20%. So 20% of pancreatic cancer patients will survive after 5 years. So in the past, there was no early detection initiatives or methods, and because of us, we've been able to develop some new early detection initiatives that are just been approved and moving forward. So they're really looking at genetic and molecular testing to help people out and do that early detection, because there's no way by the time, you've never heard of anybody that's been diagnosed with 1, 2, or 3 pancreatic cancer. It's always been stage 4. So it's a death sentence. So I got involved with that. And then when I got back, so there's 60 affiliates throughout the country of PanCAN, one being here in Orange County, California. So once the Orange County folks saw or heard that I was coming back to Southern California, they snatched me up and they're like, we need you to lead the Orange County affiliate. So I, without a doubt, I said yes, came out here and became the affiliate chair of Orange County's affiliate of the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, and doing our part here. We're trying to increase awareness. This month is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. So we're really trying to make people talk about pancreatic cancer, do that early detection testing and seeing where you're at, do CAT scans, and then, take control of your actions, right? So if the doctor's like, oh yeah, it's whatever, or we can't see the pancreas in the CT scan, don't just say, okay, no, go back and do another CT scan so you get the pancreas. Right. So I'll tell you the truth. I had some side pains a couple months ago, and I had them take several CT scans because they couldn't get in the imagery, they couldn't get the pancreas in the scan. And finally they got it, and there was nothing was wrong with it. But and then it was just some other issue. But yeah, so I think that's important for us, and for anybody out there that knows anybody that's been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, or if you're a caregiver, or if you lost somebody from pancreatic cancer, you can reach out to PanCAN. They have patient services, which is 1-877 2 PanCAN, so PANCAN. So again, 1-877-2 PANCAN. They will definitely help you out and lead you in the right direction, help you, give you the resources, to help fight this disease.
And so I hate to hear about your friend and your cousin and all the other folks that get diagnosed with this terrible affliction. and then some of the prognoses that they receive. It's great to hear. On the flip side, it is wonderful to hear of the great work that you and the PanCan and all the other supporters, and how that's moved the needle in terms of what those prognoses look like. That is wonderful. So JB mentioned all the folks, if you need help, but the flip side of that is if you want to get behind a great cause, if you want to donate, if you want to volunteer, I'm assuming there's some opportunities there, but certainly donating and we need resources in these battles, right? So PanCan, PANCAN.org, which stands, of course, for the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. And you head up one of the 60 chapters, that being in Orange County. Is that right?
That is correct. Orange County, California. Yep.
Okay.
So we are going to do one event this year that's world or nationwide called PanCan Purple Stride. So it's our walk to end pancreatic cancer. So it's happening on one day, all 60 locations throughout the U.S. on April 30th, 2022. So again, you go to pancan.org, find out about Purple Stride and walk. It's free. You just join for free and walk it for free and wear your purple.
Love it.
Pretty awesome event.
Love that. Okay.
Got my purple too.
I see that. And so April 2022, a great call to action. You got time. So the reference, JB and Mary Kate both have talked about how the month we're in, which is November when we were recording this, is a big month for pancreatic cancer. We'll probably publish this episode in December, but folks, hey, you still got plenty of time. No excuses to get behind that April event in 2022. Okay, Mary Kate, I shared a couple of my observations around his work with PanCan, the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. What sticks out in your mind?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for sharing a story about Tyler's story about your cousin. That awareness factor is so huge. And I think one of the things to get across too that you mentioned is that you don't have to know anything to get involved. Like you just started somewhere, and it was as simple as Tyler inviting you and getting you to Capitol Hill to fight for a cause, and really just amplifying our voices together just really shakes the roof off of our nation's leaders. And just to see at the grassroots level, we just need to amplify their voices for those who can't speak for themselves, especially. So thank you so much, JB, for the work that you're doing and continue to do. And I'm going to keep rocking purple this month and onward. I realize that I need to add more purple to my wardrobe, but it really is just a matter of getting that conversation going. And I can't say I'll ever have as many shoes as you, but I think the purple thing is something I can do. But again, thank you so much, JB, for taking this time and opportunity to share your story.
Agreed. I love it. Well said. As always, Mary Kate. Okay. Well, there's so much more here, JB. I feel like we're just scratching the surface. I love so much of how you look at life, and more importantly, how you act on life and how you help others and serve others. All right. So let's make sure folks know how to connect with JB Jaso. How can folks do that?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So it's just JB Jaso. My name's on the thing, JB Jaso. Or you could also connect with me on Twitter and Instagram as well. Again, JB Jaso, and then the number 3 is my handle on both Twitter and Instagram. So
love it. Yeah. Hey, can I challenge you, JB, as we promote this episode a few weeks down the road? I'd love to get a snapshot of of your sneaker collection. Right, that would be some unique some unique images, right? That we try to find a unique angle with each of these shows, and hey, maybe I can uncover what the cool sneaks are, so I can get with the times, JB. And I'll also bring you back maybe my sneaker consultant, and you can tell me thumbs up or thumbs down on my collection of three pairs of sneakers. Okay, folks, connect with, follow, you name it. With JB Jaso. Be sure to visit pancan.org. Be sure to connect with him on LinkedIn and beyond. What a great guest. Really appreciate your time, JB.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Now, we wouldn't have met JB without either, or maybe a combination of, Mary Kate, Soliva, and vets2industry.org, which are our partners, brothers, and sisters in this journey to amplify veterans' point of view and thought leadership. So, Mary Kate, you're up to some really big things with the PMI organization and others. I don't think we can release some of that cool stuff you're up to. How can folks connect with you, Mary Kate?
Oh yeah, so definitely on LinkedIn, just like JB. I don't have as many social media handles, but he's definitely got a fascinating journey to watch. So definitely recommend subscribing to watch JB. But you can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn at Mary Kate Soliva, and that's Soliva. I think I'm the only one that's out there, but happy to have a virtual cup of coffee or in-person cup of coffee if you're in the Western Maryland area, and happy to help you wherever you're at in your journey. So
Wonderful.
thanks, Scott.
And hey, I want to plug it because I think veterans in transition, if they haven't uncovered the Project Management Institute, check out PMI.org, right? That's a great resource.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And what I love so much about, I found out what JB was hitting on is I found out I wanted innovation. A big part of my why was paying it forward to the next generation. I really feel like at the Project Management Institute, I'm being able to do that now with engaging the military and veteran as part of the military veteran outreach at the Project Management Institute. So check out PMI.org, see all the great stuff they're doing under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It's pretty incredible, the change makers that are out there around the world in project management.
I agree with you, but we've got two change makers right here between JB and Mary Kate.
Oh yeah,
and,
JB, amazing.
Well, I admire both of y'all and what you do. I'm so glad we had a chance to hear firsthand JB's story and some of the things that's important to him and some of the things he's doing. So big thanks to JB Jaso. Big thanks to Mary Kate Soliva. Mary Kate, always a pleasure to connect with you on these conversations, right? Congrats, everything, all the good news you keep churning out. We look forward to the next episode.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, JB. And I would say, I keep thinking I need to say go some team right here, but they're fill in the blank of whatever team you're rooting for. Let's say go Army, right?
That's right.
Well, folks, hey, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have. Be sure to connect JB and Mary Kate. Hey, on behalf of the entire team here at Veteran Voices, we invite you to find us and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Of course, big thanks again to our partners at Vets2 Industry. Check them out. Man, you talk about a nonprofit on the move just doing powerful action for and on behalf of our veterans community. Vets2industry.org. With all that said, this is Scott Luton signing off for now. Hey, challenging you to do good, give forward, and be the change that's needed. Be just like Mary Kate and JB. The world be a better place. Hey, we'll see you next time right back here on Veteran Voices. Thanks, everybody.